Hey, this is Joe Calloway with the Disruption Lab, and today I've got my new friend Rob Winecoop of Patriot Technology.
Glad to be here.
Let's start with this. Tell me, just give me a sum it up, and then I want to come back to it. Tell me what your company does.
Sure, we provide managed cybersecurity services for healthcare and public infrastructure.
Okay, and cybersecurity, as we were talking earlier, one of those topics that everybody's talking about, and yet most people like me don't know nearly as much as they need to know. Before we talk about what you do now, you've got a really interesting background. You did cybersecurity in the Marines?
Correct, yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
And then what you did after that.
Sure, I was an IT officer in the Marine Corps, and I went to Afghanistan and ran the network at RC Southwest in Afghanistan, and got a lot of experience in the Marine Corps in IT and cybersecurity. And I got out of the Marine Corps in 2013, and I worked in civilian IT for a wonderful technology company here in Nashville. And after a few years of learning the business, I saw a void there in cybersecurity and decided to start my own company.
Yeah, you said that when you were working with the company after the Marines, you started seeing some red flags, which I think a lot of people watching this are going to have those same red flags. Tell me a couple of things that you saw that were almost like little alarms going off.
Yeah, so I was a project manager on the IT side of things. So when I was doing these project implementations, I started to notice that there were so many poor cybersecurity business practices going on in the medical community, specifically medical groups, doctor's office, radiology practices, etc. They would have Medicare login information taped to the wall and two or three different people using the same organizational accounts with no tracking, no logging. And these are all things that really make you susceptible and vulnerable to attacks. And so I saw a void there, and I decided that I would create a product around that niche, and that's what I do, help medical practices secure their businesses.
Okay, and most people watching this are going to say, we're not a hospital, we're not a big bank, we're not big enough to worry about cybersecurity. The problem with that is
it affects everybody, and it's not just from the hacking perspective of maybe your files might get lost, but what about the publicity? Imagine what can happen if you've got a company that's making a really great trajectory, and then all of a sudden they have a data breach, and it just kills all their momentum. So by having something in place ahead of time, you can kind of get ahead of that.
What's the trap of a company saying, we're not big enough to worry about that yet, we'll do it down the road?
I think that's based on a fear that it's going to be extremely expensive, which it's actually not that expensive if you build a plan and work it from the beginning. But more than that, it's very difficult to go back and fix mistakes, especially say you're a company that's doing agile development and you're trying to push out a product or something like that. It's very difficult to go back and try to audit that code later. So it's very important to have good cyber hygiene policies, good policies in place to make sure that you're doing the right things from the start of your project.
So it's really difficult to go back and kind of retrofit.
Extremely difficult.
So if you are leading a large corporation, be it in healthcare or any other sector, what are the one or two things that should be top of mind in terms of what they need to be thinking about with cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, cybersecurity should be driven from the top. A lot of times you've got your CIO or your CISO, and they're just a person with a seat at the table. But really in today's technology environment and business environment, that person should be integral in the part of growing your business and not just a staff advisor. And so that's the most crucial thing, is to have a security mindset from the beginning. And then in
other words, it's got to be important to senior leadership.
It has.
Before it's going to be important to the company.
Right. If the only thing that's important is pushing out the app or rolling out a new product or getting new sales, and that comes at the expense of poor cyber practices, you're not going to have a culture that's going to be successful with cybersecurity. Yeah. So it has to be a top-down driven thing, and that includes CEOs changing their passwords when they need to and doing things like that. And not being resistant to the protocols that they put for the rest of their staff.
Kind of wrap with this then. Patriot Technology And if I've got a small business and I'm thinking, well, maybe I should check on it, do you guys, do you do almost kind of an audit? Can you just
Yeah.
advise people on the front end? Here's your potential liability, here's what we see.
Exactly.
Is that
So-
available?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the first step when we meet a new potential customer is we go in and kind of get a lay of the land and then come back and provide some a roadmap, if you will, to get from point A to a more secure environment through the end of the engagement.
And by the way, welcome to the Disruption Lab, new member.
Thank you. I'm excited to be part of
Good,
Disruption
good.
Lab.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.